The first bullet struck the telescope at exactly 10:47 on a Friday night. Avery Collins would remember the sound before anything else. Not the shouting, not the glass breaking above the control room, not the screams of the 12 tourists crouching beneath the rotating observatory dome. She would remember the metallic crack as the bullet tore through the brass adjustment wheel of the century-old telescope her father had taught her to use. For one impossible second, everyone froze. The night sky remained perfectly clear above them. Thousands of stars burned across the blackness, distant and indifferent, while the observatory lights flickered and a second bullet shattered the western window. "Down!" someone shouted. The quiet businessman moved before anyone else. He crossed the circular room in 3 strides, caught Avery around the waist, and dragged her behind the stone base of the telescope just as another shot ripped through the railing where she had been standing. His body covered hers, broad shoulders, tailored black coat, the clean scent of cedar and cold rain. One hand cradled the back of her head. The other disappeared beneath his jacket. Avery looked up and saw something she had never seen in the 7 Fridays he had attended her tours. Not fear, recognition. He knew exactly what gunfire sounded like. He knew exactly where it was coming from, and he had been expecting it. The businessman drew a pistol. Avery stopped breathing. Around the dome, tourists whimpered and crawled toward the emergency stairwell. The man raised his head slightly, listening to the direction of the shots with chilling calm. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was low, controlled, and far more dangerous than the gunfire outside. Avery stared at the weapon in his hand. "Who are you?" His Chasamithers. Dark eyes. Unreadable expression. A thin scar near his temple she had noticed on his first visit but never asked about. Before he could answer, the observatory doors burst open. 3 men in dark coats entered with weapons drawn. Avery's heart slammed against her ribs. The businessman turned, aimed, and fired twice. The shots were deafening inside the dome. One attacker fell behind the ticket counter. Another retreated through the doorway. The third lifted his weapon toward Avery. The businessman stepped directly into the line of fire. He shot first. The attacker dropped. Silence rushed back into the room, broken only by the alarm and the frightened breathing of the visitors. Then headlights flooded the windows. Black SUVs climbed the mountain road in formation. Avery tightened her hands against the stranger's shirt. More men poured into the observatory, but these men did not point their weapons at him. They surrounded him, protected him. One of them, silver-haired and severe, glanced at Avery beneath the businessman's arm. "Mr. Romano," he said, "we need to move." Avery felt the name land inside her like another gunshot. Romano. Everyone in northern Colorado knew that name. Romanos owned hotels, construction companies, private security firms, nightclubs, shipping businesses, and enough politicians to make reporters lower their voices when speaking about them. Rumors said the family's legitimate empire was only the visible part. Rumors said Gabriel Romano had inherited the criminal organization at 29 after his father and older brother were killed in the same week. Rumors said he had responded by ending a 3-year war in 3 months. Avery looked at the man who had spent 7 quiet Fridays standing at the back of her tours. The man who always bought a ticket in cash. The man who listened to every story she told about stars but never once looked through the telescope. "You're Gabriel Romano," she whispered. His jaw tightened. "Yes." Avery glanced at the bodies, the weapons, the shattered telescope. "Were they shooting at you?" Gabriel's silence answered before his words did. "I believe so." Her fear turned hot. "You believe so?" His arm remained around her. Even now, even with his men securing the room, he had not released her. "You brought this here. I didn't know they would attack tonight. But you knew someone might." A muscle moved in his cheek. "Avery, you knew my name?" His expression changed. Only slightly, but she saw it. He had known far more about her than she had known about him. Outside, rain began tapping against the cracked windows, although the forecast had promised clear skies until morning. The stars disappeared behind approaching clouds. Gabriel's hands slowly left the back of her head. "You need to come with me." Avery stared at him. "I'm not going anywhere with you. The surviving shooters know you were beside me. I'm beside tourists every night. You were under my protection when they saw you. I didn't ask for your protection." "No," Gabriel said, his voice dropping. "But you have it now. The words should not have affected her. They should have sounded like a threat. Instead, beneath the rotating dome and the dying lights, they sounded like something much worse. A promise. 5 hours earlier, Avery's greatest concern had been a broken coffee machine and 6 disappointed children from Denver. The Blackwood Mountain Observatory sat nearly 9,000 feet above sea level, 40 minutes from the nearest town, and 12 winding miles from a reliable cell signal. It had once been a research station. Now it survived on school visits, private donations, summer meteor shower festivals, and the evening tours Avery organized 5 nights a week. The building was old, drafty, underfunded, and beautiful. Its white dome rose above the pine trees like a forgotten moon. Avery loved every cracked tile and rusted hinge. Her father, Dr. Samuel Collins, had directed the observatory for 22 years. He had died 4 winters earlier after a sudden heart attack in the control room. Since then, Avery had kept the place alive with determination, unpaid overtime, and increasingly creative lies to creditors. She told volunteers the heating system was temperamental. It was failing. She told visitors the East Wing was closed for renovations. The roof leaked. She told everyone the observatory board was reviewing several generous funding proposals. The board was preparing to sell, but on Friday evenings, when the dome opened and people saw Saturn's rings for the first time, Avery could almost believe the observatory would survive. That particular Friday, she wore her favorite navy sweater beneath a green staff jacket, warm leggings, and boots sturdy enough for ice. Her dark auburn hair was tied loosely behind her head, though mountain wind had already freed several curls around her face. She stood in front of the visitors and pointed toward the darkening horizon. "Tonight, we're going to start with Vega," she said. "It's one of the brightest stars in the summer sky and part of the summer triangle." A little girl raised her hand. "Is it bigger than the sun?" "About 2 times bigger and much hotter." The girl's eyes widened. Avery smiled. Near the back of the group stood the quiet businessman. He wore the same black overcoat he had worn every Friday for nearly 2 months. He was tall, perhaps 6'3", with dark hair brushed neatly back and a face built from restraint. His clothes looked expensive without displaying labels. A silver watch rested beneath his cuff. His hands were strong, clean, and almost always still. The first night, Avery had assumed he was waiting for someone. The second, she wondered whether he was a donor evaluating the property. By the fourth, she had accepted that he was simply strange. He attended every Friday tour alone. He never asked questions. He never photographed the sky. He never approached the telescope. He watched the doors, the parking area, the tree line, and every person who came within 10 feet of him. But he listened to Avery. Whenever she spoke, his attention found her. Not casually, completely. That night, while visitors gathered around the telescope, he remained near the curved wall. Avery finished adjusting the lens and looked back at him. "You know, the ticket includes looking." Several tourists laughed softly. The businessman did not. "I'm aware." "Then why do you keep standing over there?" "I prefer listening. You could listen to an astronomy podcast at home." "I prefer your explanation." Avery felt an unexpected warmth rise in her cheeks. She covered it with humor. "That is either flattering or deeply inefficient." His mouth almost curved. Almost. The little girl who had asked about Vega tugged Avery's sleeve. "Why doesn't he look?" Avery glanced toward him. "I don't know." The child considered the businessman seriously. "Maybe he's scared of space." One of the parents apologized. Gabriel, though Avery did not yet know his name, lowered his gaze to the child. "Perhaps," he said. The answer surprised Avery. So did the quiet sadness in it. After the tour, the visitors returned to their cars. Avery remained behind to close the dome while her assistant Owen carried chairs downstairs. The businessman stood near the exit. "You're still here," Avery said. "So are you. I work here." He looked toward the open dome, but not through it. "There's a storm moving in." "Not for several hours. The mountain road gets dangerous." Avery folded her arms. "Are you always this cheerful?" "I'm practical." "You're mysterious." "That's not the same thing." "No. Mysterious people usually enjoy being mysterious." "You look like you find it exhausting." His eyes returned to hers. The quiet intensity of his attention made her feel strangely visible. Most people noticed Avery's confidence first and her softness second. Some men noticed her curves before anything else, the fullness of her hips, the generous shape beneath her sweater, the body she had spent years learning not to apologize for. This man noticed whether she was near an exit, whether she was tired, whether she had checked the weather. He seemed to study risk before beauty. But sometimes, when Avery turned away, she felt his gaze lingering. "Look through the telescope," she said suddenly. "No. You come here every week. I know. You listen to me describe things you could see for yourself." "Yes. Why?" He looked past her toward the stars. For the first time, uncertainty moved through his expression. It disappeared so quickly she might have imagined it. Some things are easier to hear about than to see. Avery softened. "Stars? Distance." Before she could ask what he meant, he stepped away. "Drive carefully, Miss Collins." She watched him leave. She had never told him her last name. 10 minutes later, the first bullet struck the telescope. Gabriel's men evacuated the tourists through the service tunnel and arranged police statements before local authorities reached the mountain. Avery noticed how officers avoided meeting Gabriel's eyes. She noticed how the sheriff spoke to him with formal respect instead of suspicion. She noticed how quickly the attackers' bodies disappeared beneath emergency sheets. By dawn, the shooting was being described as an attempted robbery. No robbery had ever required military-grade rifles and 3 escape vehicles. Avery stood outside the observatory, with a blanket around her shoulders as rain turned the mountain road silver. Gabriel waited beside a black SUV. 2 bodyguards stood several feet away. "Come with me," he repeated. "No. The men who attacked us belong to Lorenzo Vale. Am I supposed to know who that is? Be grateful you don't. Don't speak to me like I'm one of your employees." His gaze sharpened. "I don't speak to my employees this patiently." Avery should have been afraid. She was afraid, but anger held her upright. "You attended my tours knowing someone might follow you. I took precautions. People almost died." "Yes." The single word carried no defense. Only guilt. Gabriel stepped closer. Rain darkened his hair and gathered along the shoulders of his coat. "Vale saw you with me. Even if he doesn't know who you are yet, he will learn. Until I know why he attacked here, you cannot return home. My home is 20 minutes away, which makes it easy to find. I have a security system." Gabriel glanced toward the broken observatory windows. So did this building. Avery hated that he was right. She hated more that he looked exhausted beneath his control. "Why were you really here?" she asked. "For the tour. Men don't launch assassinations because they dislike astronomy. I wasn't here on business. You are Gabriel Romano. Everything you do is business." A shadow moved through his eyes. "That is precisely the problem." Avery looked toward her old Subaru. One tire had been shot out. The passenger window was shattered. Gabriel's men had already found a tracking device beneath the rear bumper. Her anger cooled into something sharper. "How long have they been following me?" "We don't know. And you still expect me to trust you?" "No." The answer startled her. Gabriel opened the SUV door. "I expect you to understand the danger." Avery stood in the rain, torn between every warning instinct she possessed and the memory of his body shielding hers. "You'll bring me back when it's safe?" "Yes." "You'll tell me the truth?" His pause lasted half a second too long. "I'll tell you what I can." "That isn't good enough." "It's what I have." Avery studied him. He was feared by armed men, deferred to by police, and surrounded by people willing to kill for him. Yet he looked at her as though her refusal mattered. 24 hours, she said. "Then I leave." Gabriel's expression remained unreadable, but some tension eased from his shoulders. Agreed. It was the first lie he told her that she recognized. Gabriel's mountain residence was not a house. It was a fortress pretending to be architecture. Glass walls overlooked a vast valley of dark pine trees. Stone fireplaces divided rooms larger than Avery's entire observatory. Security cameras followed every approach. Armed men occupied quiet positions along the perimeter, yet the interior felt almost empty. No family photographs. No clutter. No evidence that anyone truly lived there. Avery stood in the entrance wearing borrowed clothes provided by Gabriel's housekeeper, black pants, a cream sweater, and a wool cardigan that fit her curves better than she expected. Gabriel entered behind her. He had changed into a charcoal shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. A faint tattoo disappeared beneath one cuff. Another crossed the side of his hand like black smoke. Avery noticed before she could stop herself. Gabriel noticed her noticing. Neither mentioned it. An older woman approached. "This is Elena," Gabriel said. "She manages the house." Elena's expression warmed when she saw Avery. "So you are the woman from the mountain." Avery glanced at Gabriel. "He's mentioned me?" Gabriel's face did not change. Elena's smile became careful. "Mr. Romano has asked several questions about the observatory." "What kind of questions?" "Funding, staffing, ownership." Gabriel's gaze warned Elena into silence. Avery turned to him. "You research the observatory. I research places I visit. Do you investigate every museum before buying a ticket?" "Yes." "That is deeply unsettling." "So, I've been told." Avery followed Elena upstairs to a guest suite with a balcony overlooking the valley. Her phone had no signal, but Gabriel provided a secure line and allowed her to call Owen. The observatory was closed indefinitely. The board planned an emergency meeting. Reporters had already heard about the shooting, and a development company named Vale International had submitted a revised purchase offer for the entire eastern side of Blackwood Mountain. The offer had arrived that morning. Avery lowered the phone slowly. Gabriel stood in the doorway. "You knew," she said. "I suspected. Vale wants the observatory property. He wants the mountain." "For what?" "A luxury resort, according to the public documents." "And according to the private ones?" Gabriel entered. "A transportation corridor." "For what?" He said nothing. Avery laughed once, without humor. "Right. You'll tell me what you can. Vale intends to build private roads, underground service tunnels, and a helicopter facility. The mountain gives him access to 3 counties without passing through major highways. You're saying he wants to use a resort to move illegal cargo?" "Yes. And the observatory is in the way. It controls the highest ridge." Avery walked toward him. "So the shooting wasn't only about you?" "No. You came to my observatory because you knew Vale wanted it." Gabriel's expression hardened. "I came before his formal offer. But you knew this was coming." "Yes." The word hit harder than she expected. Every Friday, every quiet moment, every time she had teased him for refusing the telescope, he had not been an ordinary visitor. He had been watching a battlefield. "Was any part of it real?" she asked. His brow tightened. "The tours, the questions you asked Elena, the way you listened, the reason you came back." Gabriel's voice became quieter. "That was real. Then tell me why." He looked toward the windows. Night still covered the valley, but dawn had begun whitening the horizon. "My reasons are not simple. Neither is getting shot at." For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he walked to the glass doors and opened them. Cold air swept inside. Avery followed him onto the balcony. The mountain sky stretched above them, dimming as morning approached. Gabriel stood with his hands on the stone railing, eyes fixed on the forest below. Always below, never up. Avery moved beside him. "You really don't look at the stars?" "No." "Why?" His jaw tightened. "When I was 23, my brother was killed during a meteor shower." Avery's anger paused. Gabriel continued before she could respond. "We were driving outside Denver. He wanted to stop and watch. I told him we didn't have time. 10 minutes later, our car was attacked." His voice held no tremor. "That made the pain worse. My brother died looking through the windshield at a sky I refused to stop for." Avery looked at him. Gabriel's eyes remained on the ground. "Since then," he said, "I have found very little reason to look up." The first light touched his face. For a moment, the Mafia boss disappeared. A grieving younger brother stood in his place. Avery almost reached for him. Her hand moved an inch. Then Gabriel straightened, the vulnerability gone. "Get some sleep." He turned to leave. "Gabriel." He stopped. "You listened because you missed it," she said. He did not face her. "The sky. Your brother." Silence stretched between them. Then he walked inside without answering. Avery did not sleep. By noon, 3 separate news outlets had reported that Gabriel Romano's unknown female companion had been present during an attempted attack at Blackwood Observatory. A blurry photograph showed Gabriel carrying Avery toward the SUV after the shooting. Her face was buried against his chest. His hand covered the back of her head. The headline called her his secret girlfriend. By 2 o'clock, strangers had found her social media pages. By 3, the observatory received anonymous threats. At 4, someone threw a brick through Owen's apartment window. Avery confronted Gabriel in his study. You said my name wasn't known. It is now. My assistant was attacked. He's being moved somewhere secure. He doesn't belong in your world. Neither do you. Then let me go home. No. The word was immediate. Absolute. Avery stared at him. We agreed on 24 hours. The situation changed. You don't get to imprison me because the situation changed. Gabriel rose from behind his desk. He wore a black suit again, as though armor had been restored around him. I am not imprisoning you. The guards won't let me leave. They are keeping others from entering. I tried the front door. His gaze darkened. Avery. No. You do not get to stand there and say my name like that makes this reasonable. How would you prefer I say it? Like I'm a person instead of an asset. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. You are not an asset. Then what am I? His control slipped for one heartbeat. He looked at her mouth, then at her eyes. A complication. The word wounded, more than it should have. Avery folded her arms across herself. Thank you for clarifying. She turned. Gabriel came around the desk. That is not what I meant. It sounded clear. You are a complication because my enemies now believe you matter to me. Avery faced him again. Do I? Gabriel stopped. The room became unbearably quiet. He was close enough that she could see the faint exhaustion beneath his eyes, the barely visible scar along his jaw, the pulse beating steadily in his throat. His hand lifted. For a breathless second, Avery thought he would touch her face. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. Then he lowered them. This is exactly why you are a complication. He walked past her. Avery remained still long after the door closed. The observatory board meeting occurred 2 days later through a secure video connection. Avery sat in Gabriel's library while 5 board members appeared on the screen. They looked frightened, guilty, and tired. The shooting had destroyed the telescope's primary control system. Insurance would not cover damage connected to criminal violence. Vail International had increased its offer by 30%. 3 board members wanted to sell. We can't maintain the property, Chairman Hargrove said. The offer would allow us to establish an astronomy scholarship in Samuel's name. My father didn't spend 22 years protecting that observatory so you could turn it into a plaque, Avery replied. It may be the only responsible option. The community uses that mountain. The community doesn't pay the heating bills. Avery felt the old helplessness tightening around her ribs. Then Gabriel entered the library. He had been listening from the hallway. Hargrove saw him and lost color. Mr. Romano. Gabriel stood behind Avery's chair. The board will not sell to Vail International. Hargrove swallowed. With respect, this is a private meeting. Not anymore. Avery looked up. Gabriel placed one hand on the back of her chair. Possessive, protective, infuriating. The observatory's outstanding debt has been purchased, he said. Hargrove blinked. By whom? Blackwood Preservation Trust. I've never heard of it. You weren't required to. Avery turned fully toward Gabriel. What did you do? I prevented the sale. You bought our debt? Yes. Without asking me? The board was voting today. You could have told me. You would have objected. Exactly. Gabriel's expression remained calm. I did not have the luxury of your approval. Avery ended the call before she said something unforgivable in front of the board. The screen went dark. She stood. You had no right. I had every legal right. That isn't the same thing. Vail would own the mountain by sunset. And now you do. The silence that followed was not denial. Avery's stomach dropped. You already owned part of it. Gabriel watched her carefully. How much? The Western Ridge. How long? 11 years. Her anger turned to disbelief. The land beneath the observatory? Technically, the observatory sits on a 99-year lease granted by the previous owner, which is now you. Yes. Avery stepped away. All this time, the board thought they were negotiating with private investors. They were. You. Companies connected to me. And you sat through my tours pretending to be some quiet businessman. I never claimed to be anything else. That is manipulation. It is privacy. You knew my father. Gabriel's expression changed. Avery saw the answer before he spoke. Yes. Her breath caught. How? Gabriel walked toward the fireplace. For the first time since she had met him, he looked like a man approaching something he feared. "Your father found me on the mountain, the night my brother died." Avery said nothing. "My brother was gone before help arrived. I had been shot. I walked into the trees because I believed the men who attacked us were still searching." Gabriel's gaze fixed on the flames. "Samuel found me near the observatory access road. He hid me in the basement until my people came. My father never told me. I asked him not to." "Why?" "Because knowing me could have endangered you." Avery stared at him. "You were coming to repay a debt." "At first." The words landed softly. "At first?" Gabriel faced her. "I learned the observatory was in financial trouble. I intended to solve the problem without involving you, by secretly buying the mountain." "Yes. That is not solving a problem. That is controlling it. I control what I can. I'm beginning to notice." His expression tightened. Avery moved toward the doorway. Gabriel's voice stopped her. "Your father spoke about you." She turned. "What did he say?" "That you were brave enough to climb the dome stairs during thunderstorms. That you refused to leave injured animals beside the road. That you believed every person should see Saturn once before they died." Avery's eyes burned. Those were her father's words. "Exactly," Gabriel continued, quieter now. "He carried your photograph in his wallet. He made me promise that if the observatory ever needed protection, I would provide it." Avery's grief rose unexpectedly, sharp despite 4 years. "So this is obligation." Gabriel held her gaze. "It stopped being obligation weeks ago." Neither moved. The space between them changed. Avery wanted to ask what it had become. Before she could, the library lights went out. A burst of gunfire struck the windows. Gabriel crossed the room and forced Avery to the floor as glass exploded above them. His men shouted in the hallway. A red laser moved across the far wall. Gabriel pulled Avery behind the stone fireplace. "What is happening?" "They found the house. I thought this place was secure." "So did I." He spoke into a hidden microphone at his cuff. "North Ridge, 3 shooters. Shut down the lower road." An explosion shook the building. Avery flinched. Gabriel pulled her against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, too steady, as if violence restored him to the only world he understood. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." His hands moved over her shoulders, arms, and waist, checking. The touch was clinical. The effect was not. His palms paused at her hips. Avery looked up. Gabriel's eyes darkened. For one dangerous second, the attack outside disappeared. His face lowered slightly. Avery felt his breath near her mouth. Then another explosion rattled the windows. Gabriel closed his eyes once, as though furious with himself. "We're leaving." They escaped through an underground garage while Gabriel's security team engaged the attackers. Avery was placed in the back of an armored SUV. Gabriel climbed in beside her. 2 vehicles led them down a private road while 3 followed. Rain began falling again. Avery looked through the dark glass at the mountain disappearing behind them. "Where are we going?" "A safe house." "Another fortress?" "A smaller one." "How comforting." Gabriel studied hair. "Your sarcasm increases when you're frightened. My patience decreases when people shoot at me." I noticed. The lead SUV turned sharply. Headlights appeared ahead. A truck blocked the road. Gabriel's driver braked. Gunfire erupted from both sides of the forest. The vehicle rocked beneath the impact. Gabriel pulled Avery to the floor and covered her again. His body was a wall over hers. His weapon appeared in his hand. "Stay down. You keep saying that, and you keep ignoring me." The rear window cracked but held. One of Gabriel's guards returned fire through a reinforced opening. The SUV surged backward. Avery heard engines, shouting, metal crushing metal. Then Gabriel jerked. His shoulder struck the seat. Avery saw the dark stain spreading across his shirt. "You're hit." "It passed through. That doesn't make it good." The SUV broke through a wooden barrier and descended onto an old maintenance road. Gabriel pressed one hand to his side. His face remained controlled, but the color had drained from it. Avery pulled off her cardigan and pressed it against the wound. His hand closed over hers. "Avery, don't argue. You need to keep your head below the window. You need to keep your blood inside your body." His gaze locked on hers. Even wounded, even surrounded by gunfire, he looked at her with a frightening intensity. "You should not be here. Finally, something we agree on." His fingers tightened around her hand. If I had stayed away from the observatory, they would still be trying to take the mountain. They would not know you. Avery held pressure on the wound. You didn't force me to speak to you. I brought danger into your life. You also saved it. That does not absolve me. No. The SUV hit a deep rut. Avery fell against him. Gabriel caught her, pain flashing across his face. Their mouths were inches apart. I'm not asking you to be absolved, she whispered. I'm asking you not to die before I decide how angry I am. Something almost human broke through his expression. Then his eyes closed. Gabriel. He did not answer. Gabriel. The driver looked back. Keep pressure on the wound. We're 6 minutes away. Avery cradled Gabriel's face. For the first time, the most feared man in the Romano Empire looked defenseless. Open your eyes, she ordered. Nothing. Her voice broke. Look at me. His lashes moved. Dark eyes opened. Avery exhaled shakily. That's it. Gabriel's gaze focused on her with effort. You're giving orders now? Yes. Dangerous habit. You started it. His mouth moved faintly. Then he lost consciousness in her arms. The safe house was an abandoned monastery renovated into a private medical facility. Gabriel's doctor removed the bullet and repaired the damaged tissue, while Avery waited in a candlelit chapel down the hall. Old saints watched from shadowed alcoves. Rain struck the stained glass windows. Avery sat in the front pew, wearing Gabriel's blood on her hands. She had known him for 7 Fridays. She had trusted him for none of them, yet the thought of him dying left a hollow terror inside her. She remembered his body, covering hers, the way he had known her father, the way his hand had almost touched her cheek, the way he had said she mattered to his enemies. She wondered whether she mattered to him. At dawn, Elena entered the chapel. He's awake. Avery stood too quickly. The small medical room was warm and dim. Gabriel lay in a narrow bed, pale beneath the hard lines of his face. His shirt was gone. White bandages wrapped his torso. Black tattoos covered part of his chest and won shoulder symbols. Dates, names Avery did not recognize. His eyes opened when she entered. You stayed. Avery folded her arms. You owe me a cardigan. I'll buy you another. I like that one. I'll find the exact one. Of course you will. Gabriel looked toward Elena. She understood and left. Avery remained near the door. You should rest. So should you. I wasn't shot. You were targeted. Because of you. His expression darkened with guilt. Yes. Avery approached the bed. Who betrayed you? We don't know yet. The attackers found your mountain house. They knew which road we would take. Yes. That means someone close to you gave them information. Yes. You say that very calmly. Anger is useful only when directed. Is that how you justify everything? No. Gabriel watched her in the candlelight. It is how I survived. Avery sat in the chair beside him. Did my father know what you were? He knew enough. And he still helped you. Your father believed a wounded man should not be judged before he stopped bleeding. Avery smiled despite herself. That sounds like him. Gabriel's gaze moved over her face. He would hate what I have brought to you. He might. He would tell you to leave. He spent most of my life telling me what to do. I rarely listened. I know. Avery frowned. How would you know? A faint pause. Samuel described you accurately. Gabriel shifted, and pain tightened his jaw. Without thinking, Avery reached to steady him. Her palm pressed lightly against his bare chest. Both of them went still. His skin was warm. His heartbeat strong beneath her hand. Gabriel looked at her fingers, then slowly up at her. The air changed. Avery should have moved. She did not. Gabriel lifted his hand and touched one loose curl near her cheek. The restraint in the gesture made it more intimate than a kiss. His fingers slid along the strand, but stopped before touching her skin. Why do you stop? Avery whispered. His voice was rougher than she had ever heard it. Because if I touch you the way I want to, I will not stop. Avery's pulse quickened. You've been watching me for weeks. Yes. Why? I told myself it was because of your father. And now? Gabriel's thumb finally brushed her cheek. Now I attend because Friday is the only night I remember what silence feels like. Avery's breath caught. You never look through the telescope. I look at you. The confession entered the room softly and changed everything. Avery leaned closer. Gabriel's hand slit behind her neck. Their foreheads nearly touched. Then the door opened. One of Gabriel's lieutenants entered. He stopped immediately. "Forgive me." Gabriel's hand fell. His face returned to stone. "What happened?" "We found the leak." The lieutenant placed a tablet on the bed. A photograph filled the screen. Owen stood outside a restaurant, accepting an envelope from a man connected to Vale International. Avery stared. "No. The image was taken 3 weeks ago," the lieutenant said. "That isn't possible. We traced several messages from his phone. Owen has worked with me for 6 years." Gabriel studied Avery's face. The lieutenant continued. He provided tour schedules, staff records, and building plans. Avery's stomach turned. "Where is he?" "We brought him here." Gabriel's gaze sharpened. "You brought him to this location." He was blindfolded. "Where?" "Lower storage." Gabriel moved to rise. Pain cut through him. Avery pressed him back. "You are not interrogating anyone like this. He betrayed you. He may have an explanation. The evidence is clear. Evidence can be manipulated." Gabriel's expression became colder. "I will decide that." Avery stood. "No. I will speak to him first. This is not your world. He is my friend. He sold you. You don't know that." Gabriel's voice dropped. "I know what betrayal looks like." Avery looked at the photograph again. Owen's face was tense. The envelope remained unopened in his hand. Something about it felt wrong. "I'm talking to him." Gabriel's eyes warned her. Avery did not look away. Finally, he turned to his lieutenant. "She gets 5 minutes." Owen sat tied to a chair in the monastery cellar. His lip was split. A bruise darkened one cheek. Avery stopped in the doorway. "What did they do to you?" "I'm fine. You're tied to a chair. Compared to the alternatives, I'm doing great." Gabriel's men remained outside. Avery closed the door. "Owen, they have photographs." "I know." "Message." "I know. Tell me they're wrong." He looked away. Avery's throat tightened. "You sold information about the observatory. I didn't know anyone would get hurt." Her breath left her. "How could you?" "Vale's people approached me months ago. They said the observatory was going to close no matter what. They offered enough money to pay my mother's medical bills. You could have told me. And what would you have done?" "We barely had enough for electricity." "I would have helped." "With what money?" Avery flinched. Owen closed his eyes. "I gave them schedules, visitor counts, maintenance information. I thought they wanted data for the purchase. They used it to attack us. I didn't give them Gabriel's schedule." Avery stilled. "What?" "I didn't know who he was. Not until the shooting." "Then why did they know he came every Friday?" Owen looked confused. "I never told them that." The door opened. Gabriel entered. One hand braced against the frame. He had dressed despite the wound, black shirt buttoned over his bandages. Avery glared at him. "You should be in bed." "He is lying." Owen looked at Gabriel. "I swear I never identified you." Gabriel approached. "Who contacted you?" "A woman named Celeste." Gabriel's expression changed. It was the first true shock Avery had seen on his face. "Celeste what? I never got a last name. What did she look like?" "Blonde. Mid-30s. She wore a red coat." Gabriel turned to his lieutenant. "Finn Sophia." The lieutenant left immediately. Avery watched Gabriel. "Who is Sophia?" "My cousin." "And Celeste?" "Sophia's middle name." The betrayal settled across Gabriel's face like ice. Avery understood then. The person who had exposed them was not only close to him, she was family. Sophia Romano was found 2 hours later trying to leave the country on a private plane. She had served as Gabriel's financial director for 8 years. She had also secretly negotiated with Lorenzo Vale. When Gabriel confronted her through a secure video connection, Avery remained in the adjoining room, unseen but able to hear. Sophia appeared on the screen, wearing an elegant red coat. "You always were too sentimental about debts," she told Gabriel. "You attacked a building full of children. Vale's men acted without my approval. You gave him the schedule. I gave him information. He chose how to use it." Gabriel's voice became terrifyingly calm. "Why?" "Because you are destroying this family. By refusing to let Vale use my mountain. By pretending we are businessmen. Father built our power through fear. You keep wasting resources on hospitals, neighborhoods, charities, and dead astronomers." Avery closed her eyes. "Dead astronomers." Her father had become an inconvenience in a criminal argument. Sophia continued. Vale offered an alliance. The mountain was the price. And Avery? Sophia smiled. The guide was useful. Once the press believed she was your lover, Vale knew where your attention would go. Gabriel said nothing. His silence became lethal. You wanted me distracted, he said. I wanted you reminded that attachment is weakness. Gabriel leaned closer to the screen. You misunderstand. Sophia's smile faded. Avery is not my weakness. His gaze shifted briefly toward the room where Avery stood. She is the reason there will be nothing left of Vale's empire by morning. The screen went dark. Avery's heart pounded. Gabriel entered the adjoining room. His face was controlled, but his hands were clenched. What happens to Sophia? Avery asked. She will not return. That isn't an answer. It is the only one I will give you. Avery searched his expression. The man before her commanded violence as easily as other people ordered dinner. She could not pretend otherwise. You're going after Vale. Yes. You're injured. It changes nothing. It changes whether you bleed to death. Gabriel walked closer. Vale will keep coming. Then, let the police handle him. You saw how the police looked at me. Avery knew. Some were frightened. Others were bought. You intend to kill him. Gabriel did not insult her with a lie. If necessary. The room seemed colder. Avery stepped back. For the first time since the shooting, Gabriel looked uncertain. Not about Vale. About her. This is who I am, he said. No, this is what you do. There is no difference. There has to be. Why? Because the man who listened to me talk about stars cannot be exactly the same man who orders people to disappear. Gabriel's expression tightened. You believe listening redeems me? No. Then what do you want? I want you to care whether you become the same thing you're fighting. Gabriel looked away. I stopped caring about that years ago. That's why you never look up. The words struck him. Avery stepped closer despite her fear. You watch doors, roads, windows, hands, weapons. You look everywhere danger might come from because you believe survival is the only thing you're allowed to do. Gabriel's gaze returned to hers. And you think the sky changes that? I think it reminds us the world is larger than the worst thing that happened to us. His jaw flexed. My brother is still dead. My father is still dead. Silence stretched between them. Avery's voice softened. But I don't honor him by turning every beautiful thing into a reason to grieve. Gabriel stood motionless. She could see him resisting her, resisting hope, resisting the dangerous possibility that his life might contain something beyond control. Come back from this, she whispered. I cannot promise that. Then promise you'll try. His eyes moved across her face as though memorizing it. Finally, he touched her cheek. This time, he did not stop. His palm settled against her skin. Avery. The way he said her name held denial, hunger, and defeat. She leaned into his hand. Gabriel lowered his forehead to hers. I have spent years making certain no one could be used against me. I know. Then you walked into a room and challenged me over a telescope. It was a very expensive telescope. His breath nearly became a laugh. Nearly. Avery raised her hand to his jaw. Come back. Gabriel closed his eyes. Then he kissed her. It was not gentle. It was restrained force finally breaking. His hand moved behind her neck, drawing her closer, while his other arm wrapped carefully around her waist. Avery felt the wound beneath his shirt and tried to pull back. Gabriel followed her. His mouth softened. The kiss changed from possession to confession. Every unspoken Friday lived inside it. Every time he had watched her instead of the stars. Every time she had wondered why his loneliness felt familiar. When they separated, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. This will make everything worse, he said. Avery's breath trembled. You say the most romantic things. His thumb moved across her cheek. If Vale touches you again, I will destroy him. That is not romantic either. It is the truth. She believed him. That frightened her. It also made her feel safer than she wanted to admit. By sunset, Gabriel had vanished. He left Avery under guard at the monastery with Elena and a promise that she would be taken to a secure location before dawn. He did not say where he was going. He did not need to. At midnight, Avery received a message from Owen's phone. A photograph appeared. The observatory dome. The building was surrounded by construction vehicles and armed men. Beneath the image were 7 words. Come alone or we burn it before sunrise. Avery showed Gabriel's head of security, Marco. It's a trap, he said. Obviously. Mr. Romano gave explicit orders that you remain here. He also promised to protect the observatory. He is currently eliminating the threat. The threat is on the mountain. Marco took the phone. We'll send a team. They'll see the convoy. They expect you to come alone. Avery looked at him. Then let them believe I did. Marco's expression hardened. Absolutely not. She stepped closer. My father hid Gabriel in that observatory. Vale knows the building matters to both of us. If he burns it, he destroys evidence, controls the ridge, and breaks the community's will. This is not your responsibility. It became my responsibility before Gabriel ever arrived. Marco studied her. You understand he will kill me if you are harmed. Then make sure I'm not harmed. 20 minutes later, Avery left the monastery in Owen's old pickup truck, while Gabriel's security team followed without lights through the forest roads. Snow had begun falling at the higher elevation. The mountain looked ghostly beneath the clouds. When Avery reached the observatory, floodlights illuminated the white dome. Heavy equipment blocked the parking lot. Lorenzo Vale stood near the entrance in a gray overcoat. He was handsome in a polished public way. Silver touched his dark hair. His gloves were spotless. Owen knelt beside him with his hands bound. Avery stopped the truck. Vale smiled. Miss Collins, let him go. You came more quickly than I expected. You threatened my observatory. Gabriel was correct. You are predictable. Avery stepped out. Cold wind pulled at her coat. Where is he? Busy attacking 3 empty warehouses. Avery's stomach tightened. Vale had diverted Gabriel. Romano has always mistaken aggression for intelligence, Vale said. His brother made the same mistake. Avery froze. You killed Gabriel's brother. Vale's smile deepened. I arranged the lesson. Gabriel survived it poorly. Rage cut through her fear. You've been building this war for years. I've been waiting for him to acquire something he could not replace. His eyes moved over Avery. She felt the meaning immediately. Gabriel does not own me. No, that is why he wants you. Vale gestured toward the observatory. Your father saved him. He bought the mountain to repay the debt. Then he discovered you. Avery said nothing. You gave him the illusion that he might become another man, Vale continued. Men like Gabriel are most dangerous when hopeful. They are also most easily controlled. Avery looked toward the dome. You don't care about the resort. I care about the tunnels beneath it. And if the observatory burns, the mountain becomes cheaper. Vale lifted one gloved hand. A man near the entrance raised a fuel container. Avery's heart lurched. Wait. Vale smiled. There it is. What do you want? Gabriel's ownership files. Transfer authorization for the mountain. Access codes to his private financial network. I don't have those. No, but he will bring them for you. Avery understood. The message had never truly been for her. It had been bait for Gabriel. Headlights appeared below the ridge. Black SUVs climbed the road at impossible speed. Vale looked almost pleased. Right on time. Gabriel's vehicles surrounded the parking area. Doors opened. Armed men emerged into the snow. Gabriel stepped from the center SUV. He wore a black suit beneath a long coat, one hand near the wound in his side. His gaze found Avery first. The fury in his face was unlike anything she had seen. Not because Vale held the mountain, because Avery had come. Vale placed a gun against Owen's head. Come closer, Gabriel. Gabriel walked forward alone. Avery looked toward the tree line. Marco's hidden team waited for a clear angle. Vale's men were positioned around the fuel tanks. One gunshot could ignite the building. Gabriel stopped 20 feet away. You should have left the observatory alone, he said. Vale laughed. You should have left the woman alone. Gabriel's gaze shifted briefly to Avery. Are you hurt? No. You disobeyed direct orders. Not the time. It will be. Despite the danger, Avery felt a wild pulse of relief. Vale's amusement faded. You brought the files? Gabriel held up a small encrypted drive. Release them. First, the access code. Gabriel gave him a sequence of numbers. Vale handed the drive to one of his men. The man inserted it into a laptop. Avery watched Gabriel. His face revealed nothing, but she noticed his right thumb brushing the side of his watch. A signal. Marco's team moved through the trees. Vale looked at the laptop. The screen turned black. Then every floodlight around the observatory went out. Darkness swallowed the mountain. Gunfire erupted. Avery dropped behind the truck. Owen threw himself sideways as Vale fired. Gabriel's men advanced from both directions. The observatory windows exploded. Someone ignited a flare. Red light flooded the snow. Avery saw one of Vale's men running toward the building with fuel. She sprinted after him. "Avery!" Gabriel shouted. The man entered the observatory. Avery followed through the broken doorway. Inside, smoke drifted beneath the dome. The ancient telescope stood damaged but upright. The man poured fuel across the wooden platform. Avery grabbed a metal tripod and struck his wrist. He turned, caught her by the collar, and threw her against the railing. Pain flashed across her shoulder. The fuel container rolled toward the stairs. A flare burned in his other hand. Before he could drop it, Gabriel entered. He struck the man with brutal force. The flare fell onto the stone floor. Gabriel kicked it away and drove the attacker against the wall. The man reached for a knife. Gabriel caught his arm, twisted, and fired once. The attacker collapsed. Avery stood frozen. Blood darkened Gabriel's shirt where his wound had reopened. Snow blew through the broken windows. Outside, gunfire faded. Gabriel crossed the room and seized Avery's shoulders. "What were you thinking? He was going to burn it. He could have killed you. So could the men at your house. So could the men on the road. Danger seems to follow you. This is not a joke." "I know." His hands trembled. Gabriel Romano's hands trembled. Avery had seen him wounded without panic, betrayed without visible shock, and surrounded by gunfire without losing control. But now fear cracked through him. "You cannot do that again," he said. "I couldn't let him destroy this place. I would rebuild it. It wouldn't be the same. I don't care about the building." His voice echoed beneath the dome. Avery stared at him. Gabriel's face changed as he realized what he had said. He stepped closer. "I care about you." Outside, the clouds shifted. A narrow opening appeared in the storm. Starlight spilled through the damaged dome. Gabriel looked only at Avery. "I went to your observatory because of your father," he said. "I returned because of you. Every Friday, I told myself it would be the last time. Why? Because you made me want things I had no right to want." Avery's eyes burned. "Like what?" "Peace." His hand touched her face. "A home that does not feel like a fortress." His thumb moved beneath her eye. "A future that is not built around anticipating funerals." Avery covered his hand with hers. Gabriel's voice lowered. "You made me imagine waking beside someone who would argue with me before breakfast. I can do that. I know." Very passionately. "I know." Avery gave a shaky laugh. Then Gabriel's expression broke. "I saw Vale's message. I believed I was going to arrive too late. You didn't. I have never been afraid the way I was during that drive." Avery stepped into him. Gabriel wrapped his arms around her, holding her with desperate care. He buried his face against her hair. The embrace felt more intimate than their kiss, more honest than any promise. Then a gunshot cracked outside. Gabriel's body irked. He turned, placing himself between Avery and the door. Lorenzo Vale stood in the entrance, bleeding from one temple, his weapon raised. "You always look in the wrong direction," Vale said. He fired. Gabriel pushed Avery aside. The bullet struck the telescope support. Avery fell behind the platform. Gabriel returned fire. Vale disappeared into the control corridor. Gabriel followed. Avery saw blood spreading across his side again. "Gabriel." He did not stop. She ran after him. The corridor led to the exterior observation deck. Wind tore across the exposed platform. Vale stood near the railing, gun aimed at Gabriel. Below them, the mountainside dropped into darkness. "You could have ruled beside me," Vale shouted over the wind. Gabriel advanced slowly. "You mistake greed for rule. I understand power." "No, you understand fear." Vale's eyes shifted to Avery as she emerged from the doorway. Gabriel saw the movement. "Don't," he warned. Vale smiled and aimed at her. Gabriel fired. Vale's gun flew from his hand. The impact spun him toward the railing. He caught the metal edge with one arm, his body hanging over the drop. Gabriel approached. Vale looked up. "Help me?" Avery reached the deck. Gabriel stood over the man responsible for his brother's death. The attacks, the betrayal, and the threat against Avery. He could have stepped back. He could have let gravity decide. Instead, Gabriel reached down and seized Vale's wrist. Avery saw the agony in his face. Not physical pain, choice. Gabriel pulled Vale upward far enough for Marco and 2 guards to secure him. Vale collapsed onto the deck. Gabriel turned away. Avery approached. "You saved him. He will answer for what he did. You could have killed him." "Yes, but you didn't." Gabriel looked at her. "I promised I would try." The clouds opened fully. Above them, the sky emerged. Millions of stars burned through the blackness. Avery tilted her face upward. "Gabriel." He remained focused on her. "Look." His body went still. Snow gathered in his dark hair. The wind moved around them. Slowly, with visible effort, Gabriel lifted his gaze. For the first time in years, he looked up. The Milky Way stretched above Blackwood Mountain like a river of silver. The stars were endless, ancient, untouched by grief, violence, money, or fear. Gabriel stared. Avery watched his expression change. Not dramatically. Gabriel Romano did nothing dramatically unless someone was trying to kill him. But his eyes softened. His breathing deepened. The muscles in his shoulders released. "What do you see?" Avery whispered. He looked at the sky for a long time. Then he answered, "More than I remembered." Avery slipped her hand into his. Gabriel's fingers closed around hers. Below them, armed men secured the mountain. Emergency lights flashed through the trees. The observatory windows were broken. The telescope was damaged. Snow entered through cracks in the dome. Yet above them, the stars remained. Gabriel looked at Avery. "This is what you wanted me to see?" "No." He frowned slightly. Avery smiled. "I wanted you to understand that it was still here." His gaze returned to the sky. "So am I," he said. Lorenzo Vale survived. So did Owen, though Avery forced him to resign from the observatory. Gabriel paid his mother's medical expenses anonymously, then denied doing it when Avery confronted him. Sophia Romano entered federal custody after Gabriel delivered enough evidence to dismantle Vale's political network. The newspapers called it an unprecedented act of corporate cooperation. No one believed the official story. 3 months later, construction crews arrived at Blackwood Mountain. Not to build a resort, to restore the observatory. Gabriel funded the project through the Blackwood Preservation Trust, but Avery made him sign an agreement guaranteeing that the land could never be privately developed, sold to a luxury company, or used for commercial transportation. He read the contract in her office. This clause gives the observatory veto power over any future road construction. Yes, even emergency roads, especially suspicious emergency roads. This section requires public disclosure of all donations. Yes. You removed anonymous funding. Yes. Gabriel set down the contract. You are making it extremely difficult for me to secretly solve your problems. That is the goal. He looked at her across the desk. You enjoy this? More than I should. He signed every page. Avery tried not to smile. Gabriel reached across the desk and pulled her chair toward him. She landed between his knees. This is workplace harassment. I own the chair. The trust owns the chair. I control the trust. Not according to page 14. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. You planned that. I plan many things. His hands settled on her waist. The observatory remained closed for renovations, but the control room windows overlooked workers repairing the dome. Avery wore a mustard sweater and dark jeans. Gabriel wore his usual black suit, though he had removed his jacket and rolled his sleeves. He had begun spending Fridays on the mountain even when there were no tours. At first, his bodyguards occupied every corridor. Avery gradually limited them to the parking area. Gabriel objected. Avery threatened to add another clause to the trust agreement. He surrendered. Their relationship existed in a strange, dangerous balance. Gabriel still disappeared into meetings he would not describe. Avery still demanded truths he was reluctant to give. He remained feared, controlled, powerful, but he had stopped pretending she was temporary. One evening, Avery found a locked room in his mountain residence. Gabriel discovered her standing outside it. What's inside? She asked. Nothing relevant. That means something extremely relevant. Avery. Gabriel. He stared at her for several seconds, then unlocked the door. Inside were hundreds of photographs. Avery entering the observatory, Avery guiding schoolchildren, Avery carrying coffee across the parking lot, Avery laughing with Owen, Avery standing beneath the dome alone. Her breath stopped. You had me watched. For protection. Before the shooting? Yes. How long before? Gabriel did not answer. Avery turned. How long? 4 months. You first attended my tour 2 months ago. I watched from a distance before that. The discovery felt like ice. You were surveilling me. I needed to know whether Vale had approached you. So, you photographed me every day? My team documented threats. There are pictures of me buying groceries. You took an unpredictable route. I was avoiding road construction. I did not know that. Avery looked at the walls. The images felt intimate, invasive, and undeniably obsessive. One photograph showed her asleep at her father's desk inside the observatory. Another showed Gabriel in the background outside the window, watching. You were there. Yes. That night was before you joined the tour. Yes. Why didn't you come inside? I did not trust myself. Avery faced him. That isn't an explanation. Gabriel closed the door behind them. I saw you speak to an empty room as though your father could still hear you. Embarrassment and grief twisted together inside her. You heard that? Yes. You had no right. No. You cannot protect me by taking away my privacy. I know. Do you? His face was hard, but regret moved beneath it. I ordered the surveillance stopped after the attack. That does not erase this. I know. Avery's eyes burned. This is what you do when you're afraid. You control. You watch. You decide. Yes. And what happens when I make choices you don't like? Gabriel looked at her steadily. I learned to survive them. That is not good enough. No, he said. It isn't. The answer disarmed her anger. Gabriel stepped closer but did not touch her. I do not know how to love someone without preparing for their loss. The word love hung between them. It was the first time he had used it. Avery's throat tightened. That isn't love, she said softly. That's fear wearing expensive clothes. His mouth almost curved, but the sadness remained. I am trying. She looked again at the photographs. You destroy these. All of them? All surveillance images taken without my knowledge. Gabriel hesitated. Avery's eyes narrowed. All of them. His jaw tightened. Then he nodded. That night, they carried the photographs to the outdoor fire pit. Gabriel burned them one by one. He watched silently as months of secret obsession curled into ash. When the last image disappeared, Avery took his hand. I'm not asking you to stop caring where I am. What are you asking? Ask me. His fingers tightened around hers. Tell me when you're afraid. I do not enjoy that. I know. Can I still assign a driver? Sometimes. 2 guards? 1. Arme? Discreetly. Gabriel looked dissatisfied. Avery leaned up and kissed him. His arm wrapped around her instantly. When she pulled back, his eyes were darker. Was that agreement or distraction? He asked. Both. Effective. I know. Above them, the mountain sky was clear. Gabriel looked up without being reminded. 1 year after the shooting, Blackwood Observatory reopened. The restored dome gleamed beneath brilliant white-gold afternoon sunlight. The historic telescope had been repaired and upgraded, while preserving its original brass controls. A new education wing welcomed children from rural schools. The leaking roof was gone. The heating system worked. The trust had funded free public nights every Friday. Families crossed the courtyard. Local artisans sold star maps and handmade telescopes. Former employees returned. Owen sent Avery a letter of apology from another state. She read it once and placed it in her father's desk. Near sunset, guests gathered for the reopening ceremony. Gabriel stood at the edge of the crowd in a tailored black suit. He still watched exits. He probably always would. 2 bodyguards remained near the entrance, quietly speaking with volunteers. But Gabriel also watched the sky. Avery stepped onto the small stage. She wore a deep blue dress beneath her observatory coat, her auburn hair loose over her shoulders. The crowd applauded. She thanked the restoration team, the community, the donors, and the students who had mailed hundreds of letters demanding that the observatory remain open. Then she looked toward Gabriel. The person most responsible for saving this mountain requested that his name not appear on the building. Gabriel's expression warned her. Avery smiled. So, naturally, I'm going to embarrass him publicly. The crowd laughed. Gabriel did not, though warmth touched his eyes. A year ago, Gabriel Romano came to this observatory every Friday. Avery continued. He listened to every tour and refused to look through the telescope. People turned toward him. Gabriel looked as though he might buy the entire audience simply to silence them. Avery continued. He believed the sky belonged to a life he had lost. But the wonderful thing about the universe is that it does not ask whether we deserve beauty. It simply offers it. The courtyard grew quiet. This observatory survived because many people decided that beauty should not belong only to those who can afford to control it. Gabriel held her gaze. And because one man finally chose to look up. Applause filled the courtyard. Gabriel remained still, but Avery saw emotion in his face. After nightfall, the public tours began. Children crowded around the telescope. Couples spread blankets across the lawn. The Milky Way slowly appeared above the mountain. Near midnight, after the final visitors left, Avery found Gabriel alone beneath the open dome. He stood beside the telescope. "Are you lost?" she asked. "I have been here before. I'm not sure. You usually stand near the wall looking intimidating. I was told that made visitors uncomfortable. By me." Repeatedly, Avery approached. Gabriel had removed his jacket. The silver watch at his wrist caught the starlight. "You gave a speech about me," he said. "You survived, barely." She smiled. The observatory was quiet around them. Outside, the restored community center glowed warmly through enormous windows. Volunteers cleaned tables. Families descended the mountain road. The place felt alive. Gabriel touched Avery's waist. "I have something for you." "That sounds dangerous." "Usually." He reached into his pocket. Avery's pulse jumped. Gabriel withdrew a small velvet box. For the first time since she had known him, he looked uncertain. Not afraid of gunfire. Not afraid of betrayal. Afraid of her answer. "Avery Collins," he said. "You have interfered with my business, disobeyed my security instructions, rewritten my property agreements, restricted my bodyguards, and forced me to attend public astronomy events. I have been very productive. You have made silence impossible. That sounds less romantic than you think. You have also made it unnecessary." Her smile disappeared. Gabriel opened the box. A ring rested inside, elegant and darkly beautiful. A diamond surrounded by tiny sapphire stones like stars around a moon. "I cannot promise that my world will become harmless," he said. "I cannot promise I will never try to control what frightens me." Avery's eyes filled. "But I promise I will tell you the truth when I fail. I will ask before I protect. I will look up when you remind me." He lowered himself to one knee beneath the telescope. The feared Mafia boss kneeling in the place where he had once refused even to lift his eyes. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving that devotion does not have to become a prison." Avery covered her mouth. Gabriel looked up at her. "Marry me." She made him wait 3 seconds. Only because he deserved it. "Yes." He rose, placed the ring on her finger, and pulled her against him. Their kiss began softly. Then Gabriel's restraint broke. His hand moved into her hair. Avery wrapped her arms around his shoulders, feeling his heartbeat beneath the fine fabric of his shirt. When they separated, she rested her forehead against his. "You know," she whispered, "most people look through the telescope before proposing beneath it. I am not most people. No, you're significantly more difficult." His thumb brushed her lower lip. "And yet you said yes. I have questionable judgment. I'll protect you from it." Avery laughed. Gabriel looked toward the open dome. The sky above them was impossibly clear. "Show me something," he said. Avery blinked. "Through the telescope?" "Yes." She led him to the eyepiece. "What do you want to see?" "Whatever you see first." Avery adjusted the telescope toward Saturn. The planet came into view, pale gold and surrounded by its rings. She stepped back. Gabriel hesitated. The old fear passed through him. Quieter now. Avery placed her hand over his. "I'm here." He leaned toward the eyepiece. For several seconds, he said nothing. Avery watched his face instead of the telescope. "What do you see?" she asked. Gabriel remained looking. "A world surrounded by something beautiful. Those are rings made mostly of ice." "I know. You listened to the tours. Every word." He straightened and looked at her. The loneliness that had once defined him had not vanished. It had transformed. It now shared space with wonder, with love, with a future. Gabriel reached for Avery's hand. Together, they walked out onto the observation deck. Below them, Blackwood Mountain rested in darkness, protected from the luxury lights that would have erased the stars. The observatory glowed behind them. The community slept safely in the valley. Gabriel wrapped his coat around Avery's shoulders and drew her against his side. For years, he had watched the world for danger. Roads, windows, doorways, weapons, betrayal. Now, beneath the endless sky, he allowed himself to watch something else. Avery tilted her head onto his shoulder. "Friday again next week?" she asked. Gabriel kissed her temple. "Every Friday." She smiled. "Even when we're married?" "Especially then." "And you'll look through the telescope?" "If you stand beside me." Avery looked up. So demanding. Gabriel followed her gaze toward the stars. This time, he did not look away. "I learned from you." High above the mountain, light that had traveled for thousands of years finally reached them. And for the first time in a life built around fear, Gabriel Romano was no longer waiting for darkness to take something from him. He was looking up. He was holding the woman he loved. And he was finally ready to see what came next.